Hey everybody, this is Perch. By the way, I would love to know where people find these videos from. So if you don't mind in the comments, let me know are you a subscriber? Are you seeing it pop up in a feed? Is it recommended? Because every now and then I put out a video and it just does ridiculously better. And I'm clearly stupid when it comes to keywords and tags and other things. I have no idea where these people are coming from or why certain things just do ridiculously better. The Scott Pilgrim video earlier today is doing ridiculously better, and I have no idea why. where are these people coming from? Unless it's just weirdly kind of proving the point that Scott Pilgrim fans are out there in mass. Anyway, so DC Comics, there's these continual kind of hysterical, weird DC Comics news articles that get put out. And I'm talking news articles. I'm not talking to YouTube shows or anything else. And Bleeding Cool has one today, but there were some over the weekend, kind of all over the place. And what's weird is these articles are getting more and more convoluted as they go, because the people who are writing them have to juggle multiple narratives that kind of conflict. So the narrative number one was, hey, DC's laid a bunch of people off. Things are dark and grim. They're about to collapse. They're going to stop printing comics. They're going to be out of business soon. That's kind of narrative one. Then the quick follow narrative two is, oh, wait a minute. Future State is doing quite well, and Infinite Frontier advance orders are way up. And even Bleeding Cool does this in the recent article where they start out with a paragraph talking about they're going to reduce their comics and they're going to stop publishing and they're all going out. They've tried to basically license off their comics even to Marvel and IDW and others. And I mean, at least I've talked to people at Marvel and IDW who say that's flatly untrue. Now, of course, they would deny it, but still, there's a reason why some of this stuff doesn't make a lot of sense, which we'll get to in a minute. But then I guess you'd have to then go into, hey, everything is really good. This diversity push worked. It's awesome. I still maintain that if you call Future State diversity push, you're missing the boat. It's something. I don't know if diversity push is it. See, that ain't if, chief. It's a lot of things, not positive, not negative, or mix of both in a lot of cases. But calling this a diversity push seems a little bit like it just seems a little bit off. It's like when all the people are like, Axel Alonso is a huge pushing liberal agenda things. It's like, yeah, but he voted for Trump. pretty sure he's definitely known as a key Republican. I don't know. These pieces don't add up well in my mind, but who knows? Maybe. So the latest rumor, series of rumors, is that DC is that there's a group of private investors who are all going to pool their money in order to buy out DC from Warner Media, from AT&T. And that high-rolling individuals, people who can come up with 8 figures. So here's the challenge with this. Here's the common sense piece, and I'm not going to weigh in. Is it true? Is it not true? Is it anything? Here's why this is more complicated than you think. The rights that are involved here are insane. The amount of legal entanglements for who owns what characters, what royalties are owned by who. You're talking about a very convoluted agreement that you would have to unwind. DC, when it was absorbed ultimately into AT&T specifically wanted it. But one of the things that was said in the midst of all this was how convoluted it was. And you have, agreements to the Seagulls, you have agreements to various creators, you have international agreements that were crazy. This is pure speculation on my part, but one of the reasons that I believe Dan Didio was removed and why some of the other people were removed at DC was because some of the contracts were super goofy. I mean, just in terms of minimum guarantees and matchings and just some of the ways it goes are hard. And if you're trying to run a business that wants licensing, it gets very difficult. I mean, how many people have talked about the Alan Moore situation where, if DC allows Watchmen to go out of print and the rights revert to him. I mean, picture those kinds of agreements times thousands, and it's murky as hell. Again, I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer or some kind of legal expert on all that, but we do know that these contracts exist. We know it's tough. That's going to be a barrier to getting some of these comics done. It's going to be hard. I think that if an outside group is going to come in and kind of snatch up the properties, they're going to snatch up all of those entanglements as well. And for what it's worth, since there was heavy integration over the last year, and while it was ugly and bloody and you had layoffs and other things, the merging of several positions and several contracts and several pieces into Warner Media means that there's yet another legal entanglement to have to deal with. That's just tough. That's not impossible. It just makes it very, very tough. And then the next part is you're talking about a handful of people who can come up with 8 figures. Well, okay, so how much is DC worth exactly? How much, if AT&T was willing to buy DC, what would be that, or is willing to sell DC, not buy it, they already own it. If they were willing to sell it, what would that price tag be? It's quite high, and frankly, this idea, and it's happened in comics. It's funny because you can go back to the 80s and the 90s, especially in the 90s, and there were lots of articles and there were lots of speculation that were kind of, I would say, romantically written, of this idea of some fans, some super fans who are now super rich, or going to get their money and they're going to, they're going to buy Marvel, or they're going to buy Wolverine, or, it's these super fans turned investment. Those things don't play out, for a couple of reasons. Really, really rich fans who have lots of money and have an affinity toward Superman, like Nick Cage, huge Superman fan. Okay. They don't then want to spend that hard-earned money that they got on buying a random comic company. It rarely happens. Sometimes, sure, but rarely. It's way different than, say, Ryan Reynolds buying a soccer team. You're talking about an ongoing publishing business with licensing and everything else. The other problem with all this is, Warner Media, for better or worse, are signaling, and this is a bet that's going to play out for a long time. They're signaling that they have the Batman movie. They are doing more. Yes, Yara Flor is not getting picked up by CW, but Yara Flor is most likely going to wind up on HBO Max. A lot of these articles got tipped off by saying, "Oh, disaster at DC. The Yara Flor series is not getting picked up at CW." I don't know that. Is that a disaster? A series that I don't think that's a disaster. It's I guess bad news, sort of. It's too early to say any of this. One licensed show to CW does not indicate a collapse of the media strategy. Maybe not good. I don't know. I think people are viewing this in too short a term. They're viewing this as, hey, these bets are going to happen, and if they don't work, if sales aren't up in April, then AT&T will sell it in May. People need to get their minds out of months and start thinking in terms of years. These bets are going to take years to play out. For whatever it's worth, Warner Media, AT&T is banking heavily on this new Batman film with Patterson. They believe this is going to be a very big deal. They believe that there's a franchise that they can do out of it. They're sinking money into it. They're continuing to move forward on other films. You have the Zack Snyder Justice League that's going to be premiering here on HBO Max. So they've been heavily promoting. All these things are an indication that they like those properties. If they said, let's just push the publishing out and let somebody else actually buy it, that would lose some of their control and interrupt their plans. And their plans are stretching into 2022 and 2023 and beyond. It's much different. Now, the most likely scenario in all this, if we're talking about some level of control leaving its current structure and going somewhere else, the most likely thing is that DC Comics would find somebody to license the comic publishing business to, and they would do it. That's possible. But it wouldn't be like IDW is now got DC characters. IDW's brand would be hidden. The DC logo and all the rest would go with it. So the question mark might be, would you even notice? Of course, if you're an insider and you're paying close attention, of course you would notice. But if these comics were licensed out, it's not like you'd suddenly see a Marvel banner and you'd see, Marvel's Batman, and Batman would immediately start, messing around with Spider-Man. It would be different than that. I think licensing is the most likely of all these scenarios, it's the most likely one. But even there, I think it's something that is not in the near term, not in the near future. I don't buy into this story of a bunch of super rich multimillionaires, billionaires, or who are big DC fans who are kind of wringing their hands and alarmed at what's going on with DC and all the rest. I don't buy it. Um, you know, I just don't buy it. I don't buy this story, and I don't believe it's fun to speculate. It would be crazy if this went going on, but it's unlikely. And frankly, if you're an investor and you're willing to put in, and what would that price tag be? It would be over $100 million, depending on what you owned. And if you were, why would anyone come in and spend 60 to $80 million on something and not have full rights to do what they want to do? You would either have to, you couldn't get this on the cheap, and because you'd leave enough rights on the table, it really wouldn't be worth much. And getting the amount of money put together to actually buy this thing outright would be crazy. It could be done, but it's very, very unlikely. And it would take a very, very long time to do. It would not happen in the short term. So who knows? Like I said, messy. I'm not telling you, yes, this is happening. No, it's not happening. I'm telling you, think about all the different convoluted aspects that would have to occur to make this happen. And there's a lot. So fun to talk about. I guess it sells headlines and everything else, but it's always more boring and more complicated than you think. Anyway, what do you think? What's your feeling on all this? And are you tired of it by now? Like I'm legit tired. I'm ready to, the next video I do on this subject, I think I want it to be when the sale has happened. That's the next video I want to do. I'm tired of all the it's funny. This Netflix show that's out right now that talks about the amount of complete pseudo experts that go on constantly talking about this stuff. I guess you could pull me into that as well. I don't know. It's crazy to speculate. Anyway, like and subscribe. Follow me. A description of how to get in touch with me is all in the description of this video. And thanks for listening.